The feminist beast is a particular kind of person you've probably come across. She embodies the worst traits of the man-hating side of the feminist movement. Knowing this archetype is useful for understanding the darker consequences of female empowerment. You don't want your daughter to become this kind of woman, and there are ways to prevent it. As a man, you also don't want to find yourself under her authority. She enjoys making men suffer, and she doesn't show mercy.
You should bathe more often. Your fingernails are filthy.
Stay with me, because we're going to explore the worst kinds of feminists, how they came to be, what drives them, and what seems to be going on inside their heads.
Uncontrollable, violent female anger.
I'm not suggesting you can change them. Most of the time you can't, but you can learn to understand them. And when you do, you'll see that the person they hurt most often isn't you, it's themselves. Feminism, in its harshest form, helps create monsters, and the feminist beast is what those monsters look like in real life. I believe this type of woman is far more common today than she used to be. Women have constructed a nightmarish fantasy of an eternal battle against oppression by men. This mindset carries consequences for those who hold it. As philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once warned, he wrote, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." Have you ever met a woman so cold, so emotionally shut off, that it actually startled you? She wasn't just unfriendly, she was hard in a way that seemed deliberate, sometimes even callous. There was nothing warm about the way she spoke or carried herself. She was plain at best. Some would go further and say she was ugly. That is not meant as an insult. It is part of the picture we need to understand. The way she moved through the world lacked softness, it lacked joy. She may have looked at you with quiet contempt, as if your very presence annoyed her, as if life itself had let her down, and you were simply one more reminder of that fact. This is the archetype of the feminist beast. She is not merely someone lacking physical appeal, she is someone who has turned her back on the very qualities that make women desirable.
You are the people in history they warned us about! They warned us about people like you!
She is a woman who responded to emotional pain, not by growing, but by shutting down. Behind that unpleasant exterior is often a woman who never learned how to face rejection with grace. She did not develop humility. She didn't build emotional depth. Instead, she became tougher. And in becoming tougher, she also became colder. There is a lesson in that, one that applies to all of us. Our role models shouldn't only be the people we admire. Sometimes they are the people we hope never to become. Some personalities exist not to inspire, but to warn. The feminist beast is one of those warnings. She shows what can happen when pride replaces vulnerability, and when feminist ideology is used not to grow, but to justify bitterness. But this kind of woman doesn't just appear overnight. She is shaped gradually, layer by layer, and that shaping begins early. A girl who does not receive the kind of attention she longs for begins to harden. She sees other girls being admired while she is overlooked. Rather than asking what she could improve, she begins to build a narrative to protect herself. She starts to believe that men are intimidated by her, that she is too bold or too complex or too real to be appreciated. Eventually, she stops questioning that story. It becomes her truth. The family environment can reinforce this too. The father may be passive or emotionally absent. He fails to show her how to respect men or how to grow through challenge. That was his role, and he did not fulfill it. The love she receives at home may be inconsistent or conditional. She learns to be demanding rather than generous. No one shows her how to bring peace into a relationship. She is only shown how to push until she gets her way. She may witness men being dismissed or mocked, and this too shapes her view. She is not taught to appreciate masculine strength. nor is she guided in developing her own feminine self. And then the broader culture enters the picture.
I can't let you do that.
What I do is not up to you.
From her early school years to the content she absorbs online, she is told she is oppressed. She hears that the system is against her, that men are either toxic, foolish, or fragile. So when relationships fall apart or never begin at all, she doesn't pause to reflect. She directs the blame outward. Instead of seeking connection, she constructs walls. What started as doubt turns into firm belief. Personal growth no longer feels relevant. Instead, she begins to crave vindication. This is the moment when feminism, in its most unforgiving form, offers her exactly what she wants. It hands her justification. She is told she is already enough, that men are simply afraid of strong women, that if she is not chosen, it is because others are wrong, not because there is anything she might learn or change.
Do women need men?
No.
No. No.
So why did you say that men need women, but women don't need men?
Because usually men are useless. Sorry.
Okay.
This ideology becomes her shield. It gives her an explanation for her loneliness. It protects her from having to evolve, and it gives her something else as well. It grants her the illusion of moral superiority. She no longer asks how to bond. She starts asking how to win. And over time, her entire personality shifts. Her speech becomes sharper. Her tone turns clipped. She begins correcting others more and listening less. Men no longer appear to her as potential partners. She begins to see them as problems to solve, or tools to use, our enemies to overcome. And when she rises to a position of institutional authority, the consequences no longer remain personal. They ripple outward. She becomes the gatekeeper. She is the one who delays and denies and blocks, not out of duty, but to assert control. She may not raise her voice, but she raises new rules. She invokes official processes. She follows protocol with unnerving precision, always with a quiet edge. You've likely met a woman like this. She shows up in human resources, in educational roles, in government. She is polite, but every word feels calculated. She enforces rules, but only when those rules suit her. What she does may seem reasonable on the surface, but underneath there is no warmth. She is not simply hardened, she is embedded. She is empowered by systems that reward grievance and discourage openness. At some point in her life, she started making choices, not dramatic ones, nothing that would raise eyebrows, but small, steady decisions about how to see the world and how to see herself. These weren't bold declarations, they were responses, quiet reactions to the way she was treated, to what she heard from friends, to what she absorbed from her environment. The direction she took didn't come all at once. It was shaped by patterns, habits of thought, reinforcements from the people around her. She didn't announce it, she just moved gradually toward a particular kind of womanhood, one where softness was no longer rewarded, one where control felt safer than vulnerability. This doesn't happen to every woman. Some are buffered by early beauty or kindness from others, or simply by a personality that leans toward lightness.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt, Chuck Batson will be the West Coast Outstanding Quarterback this year.
If a girl is treated well from the beginning, she often doesn't need to defend herself so fiercely. People smile at her. They listen. Her softness is returned, not punished. So she stays open. Not because she is naive, but because it has worked for her. She doesn't need to wrap herself in ideology to feel valuable. She doesn't need a narrative to explain her worth. She feels it, so she remains warm. That may not sound fair, but it is reality. And it helps explain why you so rarely see truly beautiful women develop the kind of deep bitterness we are talking about here. They never needed to build the armor because the world never demanded it of them. A woman who stays soft may still face pain. She may still experience rejection, but she holds on to something essential. She keeps her ability to love and to be loved. She remains fully human. A woman who chooses the other path may still succeed in the eyes of society. She may earn credentials. She may climb professional ranks, but she loses something more important, something quiet and irreplaceable. She loses the capacity to be cherished. Suzanne Venker once wrote, "Women have become angry and defensive as a result of being raised to view men as the enemy. They enter relationships with a chip on their shoulder and a sword in their hand. As a result, they can't find love, because love doesn't flow from a well of anger and aggression." Not every woman chooses bitterness. Some women choose warmth, even through hardship. You've probably seen someone like this. She may not be glamorous, but there is joy in the way she moves. She prepares meals. She gives hugs without hesitation. She remembers birthdays and offers comfort without being asked. She nurtures not because it is a tactic, but because it is her nature. She has likely known rejection too, but she did not allow it to poison her. She found another way to matter, and people love her for it. Now think of her opposite, the cold professional. Her voice is flat even. Her expression never changes. Every interaction feels scripted. Every sentence is polished, but empty. She offers no affection, only efficiency. She does not connect. She controls. These are two women, but only one leaves others feeling lighter after being around her. The difference is not in physical appearance. The difference is in spirit. Men feel this contrast more than anyone. They've learned to read the room before they enter it. They sense the tension before they speak. A flicker in the eyes, a change in tone. They know when they're walking into a trap, even if nothing explicit is said. Over time, this wears on them, the feeling of being unwelcome. They get tired and go quiet. They look for peace in simpler places. Some step away from dating entirely. Others go through the motions but keep their guard up. A few double down on self-improvement, hoping that somewhere a woman still exists who sees masculinity as a gift instead of a threat. Most men want to protect, they want to provide. At their core, they're looking for someone who values that effort, someone who sees them not as a problem to manage, but as a partner worth trusting. They don't need flawless beauty. What they're drawn to is a spirit that feels good to be around, kindness, loyalty, calm. A woman who builds something warm around her instead of inviting chaos in. That kind of woman will always be chosen, not because she is passive, but because she brings peace, and peace is rare. Others may attract attention through conflict, but attention isn't the same as devotion. You can be tolerated without ever being loved. Bettina Arndt once wrote, "Then the current male-bashing culture took hold, with men as the punching bag, and women shamelessly promoted and idealized. Feminism had gone off the rails. Now we're left with the consequences. A generation of women who confuse sharpness with strength, women so committed to the fight that they've forgotten what it was ever meant to protect." Nietzsche's warning echoes again. If you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. Grievance became the abyss, and it gazed back. What it gave in return was not freedom or wisdom, but armor. Heavy, joyless armor that no one really wants to carry. Even so, there's still a way out. The feminist beast can change. She can loosen her grip. She can walk away from the story that promised power and delivered isolation. She can return to the softness she once abandoned, not as surrender, but as real strength. She doesn't need a perfect face. She doesn't need anyone's permission. She only needs to be willing to feel again. Because life was never meant to be a battlefield. At its best, it's a bond. And the women who learn to create that bond, the ones who replace resentment with grace, are the ones who will always be loved. There's one more truth worth holding on to. This is not what we want for our daughters. It's not what we want for ourselves. Everyone will feel rejection. Everyone will go unnoticed at times. But each time it happens, we have a choice. We can grow or we can harden. That pattern, repeated quietly through the years, becomes the story of a life.